Fuck, how's everyone?
Good, good. Oh, we got Farouk in here. So I'm doing well. Just been busy at work. Send it to host.
Farouk's on, I think.
Yes, sir. I just sent the request.
It's going to be an interesting one today. I think there's going to be... there's going to... Well, it's good because, when you made the post earlier today on the IRIP page regarding Dalen Borland's claims or his speculations, if we're more accurate, in regards to what he thinks this may be. And under that post, there was a lot of tension, it seemed like.
Yes.
Which is good, which is actually great, because this is what we need in this space, which is, a healthy discussion. And I emphasize the word healthy because a lot of times, many of the negative claims that are made are without any basis and are just made as just passing remarks to undermine a specific position. So I think that's not good, but if we can have a healthy discussion, that would be brilliant. Because I know obviously everyone has a different, unique perspective on the topic and approaches it from a different angle. And I think if we can just have an honest, productive discussion looking at various different aspects and perspectives, we can move forward in the discussion. But if it's just going to be passing remarks and quick low blow comments, it's not really productive. So yeah, I did invite a few people on, so hopefully they'll join us as well and we can have a productive discussion. Farouk, how are you doing? Red, hope you're all as well. Hope you guys are doing good.
Hello. Yeah, I'm all good, brother. Nice to hear from you, Imran. Welcome, Red, Afaq, Khalid. Who's on the IRIP one, man? Is that you, Afaq?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, so you got your... Yeah, I see. Bro, you're juggling around, man.
Yeah. I've been got my personal phone and the work phone, so 2 different accounts on both.
Okay. If you want to, I could jump on the IRIP, but you're cool,
fine.
brother.
It's fine.
All right, sweet. Maximum Darkness, Brent, Sal, Rista, I hope I said it, Ibrahim, and I can't see the Phenomena. There we go. You're welcome, everyone. It's going to be a controversial one, as you mentioned, Imran. We've had quite a few people message. There's people who've shared it, saying it's a ridiculous idea, whatever else. Look, Dylan, it has to be said, the guy, he comes across quite genuine. I think the things that they did to him clearly affected him psychologically. It's not been easy for him, and I do feel for the guy, man, because I've not been through anything like that, so I can't imagine what it's like being stuck in a job where you're doing things to people that you don't really want to do, where you're targeting people who may or may not be guilty of what they've been accused of, and rather than going through the normal due process, you're literally just taking them out, and you're stuck in a job like that for years on end. And then not only that, like, your clearance is removed, and then you're put in this little room with people who also have similar issues with their clearance and their job, and they're stuck in that little corner of the world, and they're also suffering with dealing with the reality of a non-human attention. It sounds like he went through a lot, man. So to say, I did reach out to Dylan. I asked him if he could join us tonight. Maybe he could clarify what he was talking about and, shed a little bit more light onto why he speculated in the way that he did. Because I don't even think he mentioned aliens, actually. He simply said gods, angels, demons, and jinn, or insert any other cultural or religious name that you like. Based on that, whatever perspective you have. But he didn't actually mention aliens, which I found was quite unusual, to say the least. Most people do add that as a potential caveat. I like the fact that he mentioned his faith, which is, not common these days. A lot of people don't want to talk about their belief or associate their belief with, the phenomena, or their respective views on the phenomena are filtered through their religious belief. So, fair dues to him for that. But yeah, I do really feel for the guy, man. I think maybe more than all the others, there was just some sort of sincerity in the way he looked and the facial expressions, or he could be just a fantastic actor, but I don't think so.
I definitely seemed genuine, not gonna lie. I could feel the pain that, you could see the pain on his face.
Red, what's your take on Dylan? What's your sort of analysis?
He seems like a nice guy. Seems like some stuff probably happened to him. I do think a lot of these people I think are just kind of looking for answers like us too. So he does seem like a nice guy, but I wouldn't. Him saying the Jinn thing, I don't know if it's like a big reveal as much as it is. Honestly, I think it's a pretty logical conclusion that if you just kind of look at a lot of this stuff going on, not saying like it for sure is Jinn, but what's being described as Jinn, I feel like could definitely be applied to a lot of the stuff we're seeing today in terms of like plasma beings and whatnot and shape shifting and all this stuff. So it is definitely interesting that it's being discussed, I feel like.
Oh, we're definitely milking it, by the way, dude. Like, nobody ever mentions that side of the topic. So whenever something pops up, you get it. We have to jump on it and fly it to the moon if we can, you know?
I do hope at some point, too, I'm not trying to steer stuff, but I do want to get, because a lot of you guys over there in Europe, what you guys think of what's going on in the mystery drone wave y'all got, or if it's just Russia, but maybe after we get through some of this Jinn discussion, we'll touch on that.
Dude, we can talk about that for sure. I've done quite a bit of digging around. The thing is, I really like UAP Gerb's methodology of research. His processes seem to be very thorough. So I've kind of been doing something similar to what he does here in Britain, and I think it's quite obvious at this point that Britain has kind of handed over the technological side of the portfolio to America. So they kind of seem to have carte blanche on the data. I think the Immaculate Constellation program is operating here in the UK as well. I think there's definitely evidence for that. And I think that it has been skimming data off and quarantined with American interests in mind, and I think that this is, agreed upon by America and probably the whole of Five Eyes. So I think also any country in the world that has radar and satellite technology belonging to America and have bought it from them, I think that technology also operates the Immaculate Constellation skimming device or program, if you want to call it that. So yeah, there's a lot to be said, because if that is what's skimming this data off, and these instruments aren't picking up these UAP because they're programmed not to, and that data is filtered somewhere else. And this has obviously caused a problem in Europe because some of their instrumentation isn't picking it up, yet they're seeing it with the naked eye. I think, this does point towards there being a wider control through these technologies that belong to America as to why this information is not popping up on the screen of their instrumentation, I think. So yeah, definitely I want to talk about that, Red Panda. I don't know if you've looked much into it, but it does seem rather suspicious that Immaculate Constellation gets revealed, a program that seemingly skims data, and then Europe, whose technology is owned by America, or at least created and designed by America and supported by America, is not picking these things up.
And full circle with Dylan, right? Because didn't he work for BAE Systems, which is like a UK kind of thing with all this?
Yeah, BAE and another company called Kinetic. But look, there's a plethora of companies that I've identified. The thing is, Britain, it seems to be, like Rizla. If you pick up like a packet of Rizla, there looks like there's loads in there, but they're really thin. And I think that's how Britain has its sort of the portfolio spread out. Yeah, it's kind of like each, what I seem to have found, and I'm not finished with my research, what it seems to be is that you could, let's say, for argument's sake, right, you found a car. No one's got a car. And a car's been found in a jungle, right? What you've done is you've given the lights to one person to reverse or to work on, or to remodel or reverse engineer. You give the tires to somebody else. You give the valves of the tires to somebody else. Then you give the wires to somebody else, and then you give the carburetor to somebody, and so on and so forth. And you break it down into little pieces, and then those little pieces are run by smaller companies that are sort of like satellite companies that you've set up. up under the main. So let's say you got BAE Aerospace, but under BAE Aerospace, you've got 20 other little companies that are offshoots of them working on small little pieces. So it's much easier to control what information is spread out there. And it's also easier to kind of hide the wider details of the program, because if you're working on some anomalous technology or what seems to be very advanced or the most advanced technology, but it doesn't seem out of place from the environment you're in, because you're not looking at it as part of the whole. You're only looking at it as, say, 1/50th part of it. Therefore, it's it could belong to anything and not necessarily part of an advanced craft from another dimension or whatever. So I think that's like just saying BAE is very easy to say that, like, oh yeah, they were a contractor that he worked for, but he also says that like it was almost like a cover. BAE was the contractor, but he said a 3-letter agency was the one that he worked for. Now I don't think it's a faux pas on his part, but I believe the 3-letter agency is mentioned towards the end of his interview about another case. And then he said, I can't remember, I have to go back and check it, but it kind of says, yeah, the 3-letter agency. And I have to double check that, but it was the NRO, it seems. So, and I could be wrong, yeah, but it seems like the one they kept redacting, the 3-letter agency that he worked for, was the NRO. Now, that's me speculating. I could be absolutely wrong. And I don't want to get the guy in trouble for saying something out of turn, or or reading into something that wasn't there. But I'm fairly sure that they redact it the whole way through, but then they bring up the name NRO right at the end. And it seems like something that Corbell would do, right? Where it's been mentioned openly as NRO, to kind of bring that name into the discussion as a kind of little tidbit or crumb for us to follow. But yeah, like I said, I've got to look back at that. I've had a long day at work, man, and I listened to it on the way home. While I was at work today, and I haven't had a time to like make notes on it properly. So
we'll definitely need to circle back to this topic. It's very interesting, but I think let's start off by just addressing that the sort of the crux of this evening's space, which is
sorry, bro.
Dylan's claim about or his speculation in regards to what it is. Where he mentions Jinn and ancient gods, etc. Now, what I got from it, and I listened to that part of the discussion a couple of times just to analyze, one, his claim, or the way he was making the claim and where it may be coming from, and secondly, Corbell and Knapp's response to it as well. Now, what it seemed like to me is that even Corbell and Knapp, who tend to be more down the nuts and bolts side of things, more recently seems to be coming around to this idea of, okay, this is not really extraterrestrial or ET, because I think he does mention that according to him or his perspective, it's not really extraterrestrial, it's something else which has been here far longer than we have, and then linking it to angels and demons or ancient gods or the Jinn. And he does mention a very important point, which is, again, it depends on a cultural perspective, an individual cultural or religious perspective as to how you define these beings or these entities. But essentially what he was getting at, and what was acknowledged, was that whatever you refer to them as, these are beings that have been referred to by people in the past throughout history. And it's just, we are talking about the same entities or beings, just seeing them through a modern lens. Now, coming from someone like him who's been on the inside, who is a whistleblower now, is quite profound. Considering the current sort of way this whole topic is going, and it was quite brave. I think you mentioned that as well, for him to sort of take that stand and that perspective. Now, the fact that he's mentioning that, at least to me, highlights that he either has done his research himself and looked into the history, or someone has tipped him off in regards to this perspective. Because it isn't really a common, at least not one that's publicly discussed and mentioned and acknowledged as much. So I found that very interesting. What are your sort of guys' thoughts on that? Where do you think this information is coming from? Is it his own personal research? Is it something someone's told him or said to him? Red, over to you, man.
Well, I thought if you wanted to real quick before, because I would actually appreciate it. I could replay it for the space real quick, this 3-minute clip that you guys clipped up, and then that way we could all kind of be on the same page with what he said. Does that sound good? Okay, yeah, let me play this real quick. Here we go, pulling it up right here. All right, it's from the episode that aired yesterday. Let's talk about big picture.
What does it mean? What's this whole story mean? Because we've been pretty far up the food chain with people who've been at it for a long time, at high levels, high security clearances, worked in programs. They all have guesses, but I don't know a single one of them that knows for sure what it is.
I will give my opinion. This is my opinion, knowing what I know for a fact, reading and coming into contact with information that I believe to be true, looking at history and looking at through my perspective. I think what we are dealing with is very, very, very old. I think old humans have written those down in religious stories. I think that it's quite clear that we have been influenced by something else. I think Arrow has been telling the American public the truth, and you have said this on Weaponized on my behalf, which is Arrow's statement, there is no scientific evidence of extraterrestrials, is 100% technically true. You have to have a control to have scientific proof, and extraterrestrial is a very exact statement and word with an exact definition, an entity of another planet. These things, whatever they are probably what are referred to as gods or demons or angels or jinn, or insert whatever cultural or religious perspective you have. There are probably also extraterrestrials. It's not a one size fits all. And considering, humanity has the same stories across many cultures: a flood, crafts that are in the sky, things that are coming and helping humans. And I'm at an advantage and a disadvantage knowing certain information that relates very clearly to things that are around the world that are related to what I know. I don't think that's by pure coincidence or luck. I think that the people that are in these programs know the truth to this stuff, and they are looking at it through a lens of this is true, this is true, this is true. This has been here for 8,000 years. This has been here for 4,000 years. Oh, we dug up this at an archaeological dig in, hypothetically, Egypt. I mentioned it to you guys last night, Lakatsky in his statement about his faith and what it means to be human and the impact and nothing to fear. Lakatsky and I are both Catholics, but I want to be clear in that it's the idea of something greater than us that is here with us and can influence us. And Pasalka talks about this, and you get into consciousness, and all of these things are so correlated, and that's a problem with this subject. And that's why one of the things that I'm a huge proponent of, going back to having our government be a part of this, is you have to set a foundation. Because if you come out and you throw it all out there, people are going to laugh at you, they're going to call you crazy, they're going to do X, Y, and Z. Then you have to set a foundation, and I understand the UFO fanatics are not going to like this opinion, but this isn't for you. This is for the public. If you want disclosure, the public has to be a part of it. Hence why I'm here, is to hopefully get enough people outside of this subject agitated, upset, and come and say, no, we're done with this. My big picture idea is it's been here for a very long time. It goes by many names. It's many different things. And it has an influence on all of us.
There you go.
Yeah, so let's start with you, Redman. What's your sort of analysis of that part of the discussion? How do you sort of read into that, or read that, or understand that?
I thought it sounds good. I don't really get the vibe that he's was ever briefed we're dealing with Jinn in an official capacity, but just that whatever he came across kind of put him down the path that we all are on, right? We're all kind of we're trying to figure out what's going on, and I think it's a very logical conclusion to be jinns, gods, angels, demons. Sounds like it's all kind of describing a similar kind of thing. So yeah.
Yeah, I think also. Sorry, Imran, to cut in.
Go ahead.
I just wanted to mention there was another portion. I think it was just not long after the clip finishes here, where he mentions that they've been influencing people to create technology, which I think he's either lifted from the statements of Dr. Pasulka, or that he's heard maybe additional information that kind of coincides with Dr. Pasulka, what she said, because that's why I thought that, like, just to add additional sort of evidence that the jinn, that he didn't just flippantly mention the jinn, because that's one of the things that people say, because it's not common to bring them up. It's not something that you often hear in spaces, or people in the UFO world, they don't really bring jinn into it because it's much more considered for the uninitiated a supernatural thing rather than, perhaps a non-human intelligence or anything associated with UAP. But the fact that he brought it in along with angels and demons, I think does indicate that he knows a little bit more about the topic, and it particularly that he brought up that they influence us. He didn't say just people who build things, but he said that they generally influence people, which is
that in
definitely
Jinn lore, that they help people make technologies and stuff like that?
Yes, this is actually mentioned. It's indicated in the Quran, but it's more than just indicated, but actually mentioned directly in the historical narratives, particularly from one of the great scholars, Sheikh al-Islam ibn Taymiyyah. There's a report we have from around 12th century where he openly talks to people who are what we would call alchemists. So they were like the scientists of the day, and they were directly being told by the jinn how to process certain plants and flora to extract the sort of beneficial properties or compounds inside them to make new chemical compounds, for beneficial ones, so like medicines and so on and so forth. And that was directly the jinn inspiring. And in one case, it wasn't a mental, it wasn't a voice in the mind, but it was a direct voice coming from within the plant. I have heard before that some people who are associated with the crash retrieval program have said that, it feels like the craft has spoke to them. I can't remember where I heard that. I don't think it's a common thing that comes out. But for him to mention that, and for people who have been in contact, it's well known that the jinn speak to you in your mind, and they encourage invention. This is mentioned in the Quran, that they encourage us to invent things, not just physical things, but ideas as well. They help us invent ideas and systems and so on and so forth. And help is a weak use of the word. I wouldn't say help, but let's say they manipulate or encourage us to come up with new ideas, whether that be systems of governance or even, actual technologies. But yeah, in our history, we have direct reports of them encouraging people to, in science particularly. So people in them areas are subjected to it because it's those areas that shape society. So that's why you would find the jinn, or should we say the shayateen, the evil ones from among the jinn, in those areas, because it's those guys who shape society. So
Yeah, that was another interesting part of the discussion. It's not in that clip, but it's where he mentions the way they communicate or influence human beings through thought. That is, like you said, directly found. That concept about the jinn, or that idea, is directly found in the Quran and other Islamic sources. That the Arabic term is waswasa, which basically means a whispering, which is done within the human psyche, consciousness, etc. That's a well-known thing. You can ask any person, anyone that's studied Islam to any extent, they will know that that's a characteristic of the jinn itself. So I thought that was quite an interesting parallel. And also, just Farouk, I'm going to go out on a limb here, bro. I'm going to mention something we'll be discussing whether we should mention or not, and I'll try to be as careful as I can. So cut me off if I get too carried away. Yeah, but. Here's what I think we can say for now, just to sort of reiterate the point. There's someone that's been in correspondence with us, or was in correspondence with us a month or so ago, who currently is not, and they have been on the inside. Let's say they've shown us proofs or evidences of their position, etc. Within the government, or what was their position at one point in time, and they have
military, bro. He wasn't in the government. He was in a specific...
Sure. Sorry, corrections, absolutely, and unequivocally, this individual has stated from their perspective that what's going on in regards to this phenomenon and other projects such as what is that called, man? Where Elizondo was projecting their mind. I keep forgetting the
Remote
term.
viewing?
Remote viewing.
Remote viewing.
Yeah. So behind the sort of whole UFO UAP subject and remote viewing, it's these entities or these beings who we refer to as the Jinn, and he actually used that term specifically. That's all I'll say for now. There may be more information, but we don't want to say any more, to negatively impact this person in any way, shape, or form. They are going through the process that they need to go through currently to eventually be able to come out with this and speak about this stuff. But I think considering what they said and considering what Dylan has mentioned, it sort of is connecting the dots a bit more now. And I think it's something that's right under our noses. I think what's happening now is that more and more people are starting to recognize that, yes, we're not dealing with the ET. And obviously people that have studied the subject and looked into it are aware of this already. I mean, you would have come across people like Gordon Crichton, Jacques Vallée, and others who have been emphasizing this point for a very long time. And also, I just want to say one more thing before I pass it over to you guys. The critics that have a problem with the Jinn hypothesis or this particular explanation, they seem to undermine this whole thing by just saying, oh, it's the religious folk, they're coming up with this because that's what they understand, and they're just imposing that upon this subject because they don't know what it is, so, Jinn of the gaps type of thing. We have mentioned this over and over again over the past couple of years. I've written it in the article, we've mentioned in many places that this is not a type of Jinn of the gaps that we're engaging in, where there is a space, we don't know what it is, so us from a religious or a theological perspective are inserting an explanation because there isn't one, and that's just what we understand. We make a very clear abductive argument for the Jinn hypotheses. We present the evidence. It's an inference to the best explanation. We show why we are making this claim. We show the correlations. We show how this current phenomenon, non-human intelligence, UAPs, and the Jinn, how their characteristics overlap almost perfectly in every sphere. And I keep saying this, I'm still to come across something that's true of the UFO, UAP, NHI phenomenon that is not true of the Jinn or the other way around. So it's a well thought out philosophical argument that we're presenting as a case. We're not saying, just take the religious perspective, or this is what we believe and this is what it is. No, we want people to discuss it. We want people to come forward if they don't agree with this to present their argument or their rebuttal of what we're suggesting, because that's what's going to make for an interesting discussion and move this subject forward. And I think Knapp, Corbell, and Borland did acknowledge, even in that clip, that this discussion needs to be broadened, or even if not in that specific 3-minute clip, but generally near the end of that podcast, and more people from different backgrounds. I think Knapp mentions theologians, etc., need to come into the discussion, because that's, I guess, bringing more people from different backgrounds and areas of expertise, etc., is what's gonna lead to more clarity as far as what's going on here. But anyway, I'll pass it over to you, Farouk or Red, whoever wants to pick up and share anything else.
It's interesting stuff. Yeah, I'm just listening here right now. When I learn about Jinn, a lot of even the shapeshifting, right, the mimicry. I guess the question I do have is there good Jinn, or is every Jinn encounter viewed through the perspective of like bad deceit kind of thing?
Oh no, so Jinn are of both kinds. You have good Jinn and bad Jinn, if you like. But from what I've read and researched, it seems to be the case that the good amongst the Jinn, they don't really interfere or interact in human affairs. They keep to their own domain. It seems to be the case that the evil amongst the Jinn are the ones that sow discord, inspire, manipulate, influence, and do all of these things, with human beings. And if you look at it purely from a theological perspective, and you go back, you look at the narrative that unfolds, say, within the Quran, between mankind and Jinn kind, is a very interesting dynamic there from the very beginning, which is that there is this sense of anger and hatred towards the human beings, because, and it's a long story itself. Maybe Farouk can go into it in more detail, but there is that frustration and anger towards the human race, this creation, which then leads to the unfolding of that dynamic where they are looking to get us and to negatively impact us or to mislead us and do all of these things. And this is what's been going on throughout history, in different forms and in different ways, in different times. So they are, to answer your question in short, yeah, there are good and there are bad, evil amongst the jinn.
Is my mic working?
Yes, it is.
Okay, yeah, I just glitched out then. I was kicked out about 4 times, but my profile was still in. I don't know what was happening. I want to just jump back quickly, if you don't mind, yeah? There's a couple of bits I want to cover. Going back to what Dylan mentioned about there being archaeological evidence. I think the type of archaeological evidence they're talking about is technological in nature. And I'll tell you why I believe that. We have... I don't want to keep going over old ground, okay? Because, you know, it's boring for people to hear. But we have in these reports from, like I said, around the 12th century, there's a mentioning of an event that occurred. And what to summarize it, what happened was there was a man who was in contact with the non-human intelligence, and they gave him something. And he describes it in this report. He says that it was a smooth, shiny piece of glass over a liquid. And this device, he said that he was able to speak to the jinn through it. And he could see them and they could see him. And in one of the reports I found that he was able to ask them questions and they would show him what his followers were doing. So like he was, for all intents and purposes, like a famous person of that time. And he had been associated with the jinn and they did things for him and he did things for them, right? It was like a mutual exchange, but one of the things they gave him was this device that sounds like a modern smartphone. Now, if this report is correct, it would have been more than likely technological in nature, electronic technological in nature, but it would be present in the 12th century. So if we are correct, if this report is correct, then it's likely what they found in an archaeological dig is something that wasn't technically invented until, you know, the 1940s or 1950s. So that's what I would suspect he's talking about, is something that doesn't belong in the past when they say that we found something in an archaeological dig. I think it was Louis Elizondo as well famously mentioned that, you know, it's like finding a Boeing 747 in an archaeological find. Which is to say that something, not only is it electronic and technological in nature, but mechanical as well. So I think that has to be mentioned as well, just to show that there's not just one point of contact. The jinn isn't just a label, as I believe it was Joe Mergia has mentioned in one of his posts earlier. He retweeted what we said and he said, it's just another label. I think it's beyond that, because a label is a jinn of the gaps, or whatever you want to call it. It's a way of just describing something that isn't really explained. But the jinn phenomena has very, very, very specific information about it. And the reason it goes into such specific information is because it's a protection for us in the future. The way we view it, and our Christian brethren may not agree with us, but it's just an extension of what the prophets were sent with. And because this is, according to our understanding, the final revelation, the Lord Most High saw fit to place information in there that would protect us from these events that are happening now. So I just wanted to make that clear with everyone, because the reason this information is so in depth about the jinn and about their life and the way they are and how they interact with humans and how they misguide and all of this other information I've already mentioned, these, as I call them, points of contact, the reason they're in there is as a form of protection for us, so that when these events happen, because the Lord knew, if you believe in God, God knows what events are going to occur and what's going to happen with people. This information in there so we can identify that this UFO phenomena that seems to be affecting the highest levels of the American and, let's say, Western government. We can't keep blaming America, because Britain is most certainly involved. That these people are involved with these creatures, and we can identify them as these creatures because of this revelation, this information that was given to us as to protect us from it when it comes up. So I wanted to make that clear first. But going back to the whistleblower, Imran, you actually, when you said I'm going to go out on a limb here and say something, I thought you were going to say more. So I'm actually going to add more to this information we got. And I'm going to, I feel very uncomfortable because we haven't heard from this guy. And it is a little bit worrying because something may have happened to him. But to be open and honest, he is going according to what he told us, and we have seen evidence that he is who he says he is, and he worked in the areas of the American military that he said he worked with. But this gentleman is currently or allegedly going through the Whistleblower Protect program, just as Grush and Borland Dylan went through before him. So he's currently going through that process. He's in contact, or he told us he was in contact with a very helpful person in Congress. He didn't mention the name, and he worked for one of he worked for the Space Force. That's all I'm going to say, and I'm not going to say in which area of the Space Force he worked in. But
it's probably best not to.
Yeah, because I don't want to lead to him being identified. But this gentleman, he was involved in, let's say, strange programs. And these programs, most people think they ended in like the early 90s, but apparently they're still ongoing. And that, as Dylan mentioned, and this is why I wanted to bring this up, every country in the world is interested in these type of programs, like RV programs as an example, and they want their own assets working on this project because of the lucrative advantages that it gives them. And it seems that certain countries in the world who know the benefits of these programs are giving opportunities to other countries to benefit and learn from what they know, at probably a price or a cost. And this also bleeds into, as I mentioned, that the technologies that America has in certain countries, let's say, to keep it simple, in the Middle East, these technologies are extension of these sort of programs. So the Immaculate Constellation program that skims data off the top for American use, is also kept secret for the most part from the countries that they're in. But these countries are aware that that data is getting skimmed, and they want to get their hands on it. So they're doing or jumping through whatever hoops they need to keep America on the good side, so that they can have access to what America has. It's a very, I don't want to say any more than that. There's a lot of risk, I think, being put on this young man, even me mentioning it, but I haven't heard from him. And, if something has happened to him, I think it would be wrong to just leave his story sort of disappear in the wind. So we shared what we can. There is more information we know, but I don't feel comfortable, saying it.
Yeah, probably not right now. But I think the key thing is to take away, which is that it's not only, Borland who's mentioned this specific angle or perspective, looking at this phenomenon through the lenses of, the non-ET explanation. I mean, Grush has done that as well in the past, referring to as, extra-dimensional or whatever, the ultra-dimensional beings.
Jim Van as well.
Simivan's absolute. He was probably one of the first, the classic, the first guy to mention it directly. And he went quiet after that. I mean, he's mentioned the same types of narratives and stories after, but he's never mentioned the Jinn after that. Very surprising. Although when he did mention it, we have the clips of it. It was very explicit. He was almost certain. He's speaking with almost, at least for him, that these were absolutely Jinn. Now, when we mention that, it's important to emphasize that, yes, when we're saying Jinn, other cultures, other traditions, people from different backgrounds and religious beliefs may acknowledge the same beings but refer to them with different names. We understand that. These beings have been around even prior to the advent of Islam, even prior to the advent of Christianity. They've been around from the very beginning. They were created before human beings. So people throughout history and time have known them by different names. And I think what it comes down to is the essence of a thing, as the philosophers discuss, what makes a knife a knife? It's the essence of it. It's what it does. So I think that's the way to identify and connect, or to sort of unveil these beings through history, is to look at those common characteristics that we find through time. And when you do a sort of analysis of history and different cultures and backgrounds, and you see one thing that emerges is that almost every culture and religion has spoken about that third kind of being or entity, which is not God, it's not the divine, but it's not human either. And then the characteristics that are listed, you see the commonalities and the parallels between what a culture, say, has mentioned in comparison to another culture. You see the similarities and the overlaps. These are beings that can shapeshift. These are beings that can, influence the human being through different psychological or means or mental means. These are beings that are negative, generally speaking, that they, want to mislead human beings. They can do X or Y. They, all of these things, you see these parallels mentioned throughout different cultures and different religions. And you can therefore start identifying that pattern and seeing that very entity emerge time and time again throughout history. And it's, although if you look at it from today, the modern perspective, this phenomenon, it's a bit more tricky because now, throughout history, people saw it through a quote unquote supernatural religious lens. Now we moved away from that. The secular world has a different, language that's used to describe things. And it's harder to navigate and to see past that. But I think there's enough there, as we've outlined many times, that allows us to identify and unveil these beings once again in the modern age. Their behavior, the way they affect people, the hitchhiker effect, all of these things point towards the same entity, who we as Muslims refer to as the Jinn. The Christians may refer to it as with different names as demons, etc. And then other cultures refer to them as other, by other names. But I think there's enough there to highlight that we're not dealing with extraterrestrials, meaning biological or entities that are comprised of some sort of atoms and molecules in a biological sense coming from a different or distant planet. But instead we're dealing with an entity or a being that has resided amongst us for a very long time, albeit in a different dimension alongside us.
I want to add as well, Imran, it doesn't exclude the biologics. The thing with the Jinn is they, as you mentioned, Red, they're described as shapeshifters. So it's well known amongst Islamic scholarship that when they take the form that they shapeshifted into, they take on its vulnerabilities. The scholars talk about this, and they mention that that's why in our prophetic traditions, there were events where the Jinn would shapeshift into snakes or dog-like creatures, and if they were to be killed in that snake form, for example, it would kill them in reality. And they can be killed by humans as well. So you can kill them. They are vulnerable to us when they enter into this side of existence, if you like. I always use the example of the microbiology. I know a lot of people who listen to me know I always use that, but it's the best example. We are the interdimensionals to the microbial world, and likewise they are our form of interdimensional visiting our planet. But for some reason, when they enter into their forms they take in this world, they carry with those vulnerabilities of entering into the world. It's kind of like, when you dive into the sea, you're at risk of drowning. Yeah. Whereas, a fish or whatever may not be. So, yeah.
Yeah,
go on, Sam, your hands up, bro.
If you look at it empirically, a potential explanation can be that it's possibly because of state change. They're going from one state of matter to another, which then therefore makes them susceptible to the very things a specific state of matter is susceptible to. But anyway, Sam, sorry, over to you, man.
Hi, everyone. So I just wanted to mention one point about the vulnerabilities. So there's the late Ellen Rose Guiley. She was a paranormal investigator who was investigated the shadow people and the Hat Man phenomena. And when she came to a realization that they have a connection with the Jinn, she said that there is something about when they shapeshift, they cannot make a full form, that it will have deformities, which could be one of the reasons that they cannot explain the thing that they have seen when they see biologics. They say the heads or something will be not normal. And people with the experience of incubus and succubus entities will notice, if they ever notice that the entity is really not a human, they will notice it by some deformities in the entity that doesn't look very human, even if though it could look like a partner or a loved one, but something will feel wrong in their how they look, or their hands or their legs, that they end up for realizing that it's not a human. So maybe this is one of the reasons if they get killed, there's something wrong, that it's unexplainable, even like chimera, like the ancient Egyptian gods, which is mentioned a lot in this whole ufology topic.
Yeah, you're right.
That's
100%
brilliant
right.
point, man. Brilliant point, by the way, Sam, because again, that's a parallel you see. So, for example, some greys are known not to have sex organs, for example, or may have other weird, anomalous deformities, etc. And you see this amongst reports of demonic entities, having hooves and so on and so forth. So seems to be this pattern. I think Afak had a narration that he came across a little while ago. Maybe you want to mention that, bro. Again, I can't even remember enough to paraphrase, but where one of the jinns came in the form of a human and his hands were. Maybe give us if you remember.
It was the paws of a dog. Oh, sorry, go on.
Yeah, Farouk, you're right. So basically, the kid, this Jinn comes in the form of a kid, right? Basically, but then the guy whose house this Jinn enters notices, and he asks the kid, "He's like, are you a human or a Jinn?" And because he notices his hands were like that of a dog's paws, basically. So he responds that I'm a Jinn.
It's very, very interesting. Farouk, sorry, bro, you were saying something?
No, yeah, I just was reflecting on that. It's exactly what I wanted to mention, because when Sam brought that up, there's also one of the most famous reports on the Jinn is the narration of the Jassasa, which translates in English to kind of like the spy. But essentially a Jassasa was described as being a being that was tall, and it was so hairy that you couldn't tell the front from its back. And it effectively is like a Bigfoot, just a Bigfoot. And Dylan, he used the analogy. He said it's like seeing, he said, imagine seeing a Bigfoot in a US Air Force uniform. And reporting that and then getting in trouble for, I can't remember how he used that analogy, but when he brought it up, I was like, is he trying to say something more, or is he just like, being but he didn't sound like he was being funny with it. The whole interview, he was very very emotional. So, and I feel for the guy, and I don't know if anyone in here is in contact with him, but I would like to have, even if it's a private discussion with him, or I don't mind, having an interview with him, but even paying for his time. His time is money, as they say. And so if there's anything he'd like if anyone knows or can get in contact with him, I think IREP, we'd like to do an interview with him, and he would be paid for his time, is what I'm trying to say. Just because I think I think the type of questions that Corbell and Knapp were sort of interested in was very UFO, UAP centric, and I'd like to explore a little bit more about the feelings and thoughts aspect. He said he woke up and his mind was being assaulted with the idea of committing suicide, and I think that he kind of played it off as maybe a byproduct of the medicine he was taking, but it could have been more than that.
Is that in Jinn lore, where there's Jinn's telling people like to kill yourself and stuff like that? You know what I mean?
Absolutely, man. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
That's one of the ways they negatively impact human beings. It leads to destruction of families and the individual themselves. They can. So the waspa itself in Arabic, it's normally, some of the scholars describe it as when they speak to you in your mind, but it's cloaked in your own voice, and they're normally sort of negative, intrusive thoughts. Persistent negative intrusive thoughts. Now again, it depends again what hat you're wearing. If you're wearing a purely secular hat, most people would try to explain that off as a form of mental illness. And sure, mental illnesses are real; they're very real, no doubt. But the line between that is quite, when you put on more of a broader perspective. You don't just look at it from a purely secular, reductive perspective, but you take more of a wider metaphysical stance. Then sure, there's mental illness, but then there's the jinn. They affect human thought, and they whisper into the minds of people and want you to do negative things to others and to yourselves, and that includes sort of self-harm and things like this as well. Jake Barber, I think, mentioned something similar as well. He had, there was an impact that he felt with these entities, or anyone that was visited the Skinwalker Ranch as well. They've left with something which has negatively impacted them. I'm not sure if it's been to the degree of where they wanted to harm themselves or hurt themselves, but this is something very indicative of the Jinn themselves.
I do want to. So we have Alien Frog who's raising a hand. So let's.
Yeah. Just before we go to Alien, do you mind if I quickly? I want to add one more thing, because as you mentioned, Ron, it's a psychological assault on your mind. People who have suffered with psychosis or what's that other one where you keep hearing voices? I forgot. Schizophrenia. Thank you very much, Sam. It's can be described sometimes as like multiple voices keep saying the same thing, and one other manifestation of it is it can be assault, like in schizophrenia, or it could be very subtle but continuous reminders to do something. And one of the things the shayateen or the jinn like to pick on is sexual desires. And another side of the coin is to make you change the creation. That's one of the things that is mentioned in the Quran, in fact, that they really want mankind to change the creation. And that goes into people who suffer with dysphoria of their gender. I won't say that it's, entirely understood by medical science, but what I will say is that absolutely that they want people to do things like that, to do major changes to their body, physical changes to their body, as a form of manipulation. And it's to the end result, is just to harm humanity. There's no ulterior motive. It's not like once they change their creation or manipulate their body or cut parts of themselves off that something changes within them, because most people still suffer after that and end up getting rid of themselves, but it's just a form of manipulation, believe it or not, through a form of hatred for human beings. They hate us so much, and they pick on the weaker ones of us, to say, the people with a more weaker disposition, and they also get us to do evil, like attack people. And one could argue that a lot of the lone wolf killers out there, from both sides, Muslims and non-Muslims and people who just randomly attack and shoot people for no reason, they are also I'm not saying they all are, but some of them could be looked at as victims of these suggestions in the mind. So this is something that needs to be obviously well researched and talked about. But I will say that the evidence is there historically. Like, we have reports about this dating way before psychology became a science in the Western world. We have this mentioned in our books dating back 1400 plus years. So just to say that, I'm not pulling it out of nowhere and throwing that against the wall. It existed way before way before modern science. So, yeah, go on.
Alien Frog has his hand up.
Yeah, I just wanted to add to the voices thing. Borland did mention something about that, like a little small part. He says something about he gives an example, I think, of like thoughts in your head to build a craft or whatever. So I just wanted to add to that.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, if you look at it from the perspective of the jinn, like I mentioned, there's a literal term for this that's mentioned, waswasa, which is these whisperings or this inspiration, as Farouk mentioned. And sometimes it's a whisper which makes you do something negative or just disturbs you generally, or it could be something like inspiring you to do something or to make something. And you have to also remember the natural sort of initial response is, I'm getting a download, I'm getting this information which is encouraging me to build something amazing, yeah? But the reality is that we don't know how that thing that you're being encouraged to build or construct is going to affect the world or human beings. We've seen how certain technologies of our century have resulted in catastrophic destruction. These were things that came in the minds of people, and they initially thought these things were good, but they were used for great evil. So you never know how these technologies people have been given or gifted are going to impact humanity. The end game may be, and most likely is, that human beings because we sometimes are very short-sighted with things like this, we don't look at the bigger picture, that this technology is going to end up doing a lot more damage and harm than good. I mean, the mobile phone is a very good example. And you can use it for good or bad. It's like a knife. You know, you can use a knife for good or bad. And here's the thing, you give someone a technology initially, and the technology itself, in and of itself, is not good or bad, but it's how it's used by the person. And then you come and inspire that person to use that in a bad way. There you go. You've just set them up to wreak havoc, essentially.
I want to go as well, Imran, and mention about the possession aspect, because it can take an even more insidious form than just waswasa or whisperings or inspiration for invention, but it can go into full-on possession. As mentioned by Michael Masters, he had a very strange experience with people who are associated with the research of the topic, and he, saw some sort of synchronized speech coming from two different people at the same time in the room with him, and it was a very odd experience for himself, and he saw it as a type of being possessed by a great spirit. This isn't outside the realms of what the Jinn do, because it's well known that they possess people, and part of that possession involves forgetting. And this is another part. A lot of people who suffer from abduction phenomena and in general paranormal phenomena in the home, they can be abducted, or they have what they call missing time. So the way they see it is that time is missing. They're in the home at 11 o'clock, and then next thing they know, they're looking at a clock and it says 3 o'clock, and they've got a whole chunk of time missing. But one of the this is mentioned in the Quran, one of the thing that the Jinn have some sort of capability of doing is removing memories. So they can cause you to forget things, which is a very unusual ability for something to have, but it could be to do with the way our brain stores memories. So because it's electromagnetic in nature, like what we see, this light goes into our eyes, right, and we see and we remember what we were looking at, and our memories are formed in that way. But somehow that they're able to distort either the process of the memory being created, or direct removal of the memory, or confusion of the memory, or something like that. But again, it's something that needs to be looked at. But this is a common case amongst people who experience the phenomena, is they have missing memories, and it could be because of those reasons. They're able to manipulate what we think, how we feel. They can manipulate our emotions, make you very angry or make you very sad, which explains how I always forget his name, man, the bald dude who picked up the egg. Jake Barber. Sorry, if someone knows Jake, apologies there. Yeah, I couldn't think of his name, but Jake, he had a very emotional moment just from picking up an egg.
Is there an element in Jinn of them kind of like Loosh in some of the more Western things, of like them having substance or feeding off of these emotions from humans, and that's part of the reason why they try and invoke it? You know what I mean? Like, is there a benefit from them when they're getting people to kill themselves and stuff like that? Why do they do that?
This is a fantastic question. It's something that I've pondered over. There isn't anything directly to say that they enjoy the experience, or that there's some sort of physiological thing that they get from it, i.e. that, they're happy or whatever. But I'll give you an example. This is, like, for a lot of you, this is going to be too much, and maybe quite a few people are going to leave the room. We're going into the woo here. But there is direct evidence from Islamic sources, directly from the Prophet, to be precise, that man, and it's mentioned in the Quran as well indirectly, but that mankind and jinn kind can lay with one another, right, for want of a better word, and to bring it into a more modern parlance, you could call it the hybrid program, just to use that terminology. And they get a enjoyment from participating when two human beings copulate. And they somehow, is mentioned directly in our reports, that if you don't seek the right protections, and there are ways of protecting yourself from the influence of the jinn, if you don't take that, it's possible that they can participate in that. And so it's very odd to explain it, but they definitely enjoy that, right? When humans go together, they can also be human and jinn relationships can happen. It's not very common. It's very uncommon, but you can read even in the very early books of jurisprudence, Islamic law, you'll find that the scholars did write about this because it was known amongst them that these things happened. So I know nowadays it's definitely part of the woo, and people don't like to hear about the hybridization or the human and non-human intelligence relationships, or that some women claim to have been something happened to them, and there's some sort of child with them that's a product of being with one of these things. We don't throw that in the bin. We don't think that that's nonsense. There's definitely space for that within Islam. So, but to say that they get a benefit, there is an indication of that in the hadith. Now, whether they benefit or they enjoy seeing someone kill themselves, I'm not sure. I think it could be, and this is just more on the speculative side, I think it could be part of, like, you know how some people are evil and they just like harming cats, and then those people sometimes go on to be murderers. I think it's the same way. You have among them the evil, and unfortunately it seems that the evil ones are the ones who tend to manipulate human beings. They kind of see us as inferior in so many ways, and the way of showing the inferiority of the human being is by manipulating them. And
it's the trickster element, isn't it? It's playing tricks and
yeah,
it seems like they get some form of kick out of manipulating and playing games with us.
Yeah. Some of it might be benign as well, Imran, like where, you know, you do a magic trick to a child, a very simple one, and the kid go, whoa, it blows their mind. It could be, in some cases, something like that. But when it gets to the insidious level of really manipulating people into believing that they've been chosen for something special and then leaving them in the loop, like has happened countless times and is clearly happening with the Bledsoes, I think that type of manipulation is way more insidious and evil, and then it can even go as far as to making people harm themselves or harm other people.
Oh yeah, Heaven's Gate was a good example, man.
Yeah,
and then many other cults that have gone through a similar process, of self-annihilation, essentially.
Because I want to make one quick thing. You know how like Jake Barber also had similar experience where he believes there's a spirit with him, right, or inside of him that's giving him advice. He did touch on that, right? Do you guys remember that?
Yeah.
He said the most beautiful spirit I've ever been possessed by. I thought it was interesting usage that he chose the word possessed.
Yes, definitely did. Yeah. One thing I want to mention before we go to the other hand, I see a hand. I can't see whose it is, but I'll just use the top of the hand sticking up. I want you to just use the analogy of the fisherman. You know, when, I don't know if, especially in America, you guys love lure fishing. It's not as popular here in the UK, yeah? But certain laws, you target in certain types of fish with them, right? And I think that part of the UAP, not all of them, but part of the UAP, particularly what gets left behind maybe sometimes, or what appears over certain areas, I think part of that is as a lure. They are deliberately targeting the people who have the most power on earth. They're not always going for, anybody who's on the like a little homeless dude on the street. They're deliberately going over these military installations. They're deliberately going over the most powerful places and displaying their capabilities as a lure. And I think that they want the attention of the people in power, and they want the attention of the people who have control over our most powerful weaponry, because those are the people worth having on your side and luring them into your ideology. And I think that's not the people that Dylan was talking about today, the ones who are unfortunately being cast out from the program and have, no other option than to just sit in this purgatory, for want of a better word, of living inside the program but not having any other access to anything else, and kind of like living with this knowledge, never being able to talk about it. I'm talking about more the people who are in that control element, who definitely have some level of confidence that needs to be feared, and definitely, I wouldn't use the word respected, but acknowledged. Like, these people are so confident that nothing's going to come out, that they can do whatever they want to keep this secret. They've, as I mentioned, a few weeks ago, they have control over news and what gets reported where, and they're across like all different parts of the functionality of the West, from education to media to military to government, so on. You name an industry, they've got their hand in it, and it's these guys I think who have been caught by the law, and they're definitely in with the non-human intelligence. So I wanted to highlight that because I think it's an important bit to understand about how they're manipulating us. They're not going for everybody, but they are picking some individuals and using them as a form of protection.
Like the intel community does on a macro level, right? They know what lure to get the response they want from each individual.
Yeah, bang on, mate. Exactly what they do, right? So, sorry, whose hand is? Yeah, Sam, go on, brother.
Sam.
Yeah, I just wanted to add one point for the question from Red Panda regarding the luge, or if they have some kind of benefits of enjoyment from misleading humans. Well, actually, it was mentioned in the Quran, in Surah Al-An'am. It says the day when God will gather together human and jinn, and then the jinn would be told that you have misleaded too many of the humans. And then the humans, that are liars, and their followers of humans would reply, our Lord, some of us had benefits and enjoyment from each other, between the jinn and human. So it seems like there is some benefits or enjoyment, like when they impact someone to do like mass murder or some weird thing. There is also at the same time adrenaline. The man is getting some dopamine, even if it's crazy one. At the same time, seems like the jinn have their own benefits and enjoyment for misleading humans, as mentioned in Quran.
Yeah, I totally forgot about
that. Alien Frog has his hand up as well.
Yeah, I'm curious what you guys think about the comments he made about interest in specific families.
Yeah, Farouk, I think you're probably best to deal with this one, man. I know you've got some interesting thoughts on this.
Yeah, definitely. This actually goes back to what you just mentioned, Sam, of the Quran. As is mentioned, there are groups who have allied with them. There's another point in the Quran I want to bring people back to, and it's an historical point. I think our Christian brothers and sisters will know about this as well. But there was a time when a test was sent to humanity. And you'll find as well that I believe it was Jesse Michaels. He did some great research into the space programs and their association with Masonic orders, and how Masonic symbolism is not only throughout the media that represents, aliens and spacecraft and things like that, with, mentions of Masonic sort of symbolism, but also directly in the programs themselves. And there's a reason for that, and this ties into what we wanted to talk about last week about King Solomon, or Suleiman, Prophet Suleiman, peace be upon him, and in particularly his strange kingdom that he was over. And part of his kingdom was a very strange subservience from the jinn. From God made them subservient to Suleiman, and of the things that they did was build things for him. But in particular, they were able to bring the throne of Bilqis, or the Queen of Sheba. They were able to bring her throne from Yemen to Syria in an instant fashion. So we have a direct report in the Quran mentioning a jinn being able to bring the throne of Sheba instantaneous due to the knowledge of the jinn. The jinn had a specific type of knowledge that gave it the ability to essentially teleport items across long distances. But what this relates to these families is there's another part of the Quran where God mentions what happened in Babylon. And Babylon is a very peculiar time in human history, because the children of Israel, or from the children of Jacob, as we we call them the children of Israel. The children of Israel, they had good people and bad people, as every nation does. But there was a point in time in Babylon where the angels were sent down by God. And just to make the story short and simple, they were sent with a test for mankind. And that test was to learn magic, a type of magic. And this magic is part of human manipulation. Because the angels said that this, as Allah said in the Quran, that the angels taught that which separates husband and wife. So it's a type of manipulation, but not like general, very powerful human manipulation, a magic that could destroy a relationship, a very personal and physical relationship between a husband and wife. Probably one of the strongest relationships. Once you've, laid with somebody, you can't really get more personal than that, right? And they're able to manipulate that relationship and destroy marriages. So there were some people of the children of Israel who wanted to learn that. And from our understanding, from the Islamic sources, what happened was they were shown where to go to study with the devil, to learn this particular information. That information, when they learnt it, and other aspects of that information, when they learnt it from the devil, they were made clear that if they were to learn this magic, they would not have any share in the hereafter, meaning there would be no forgiveness from them. Now, a lot of you who don't believe in religion, who don't believe in these things, you can brush this story off. But for the people who know history and know and believe in religion and believe in this story, particularly the monotheist religious stories, those families who gave up their hereafter for this knowledge, they didn't give up that knowledge. Once they sold their souls for it, they kept it in the families, and it was passed down over generation, and that knowledge still exists today. And we do see sometimes the byproduct of this type of magic, because we do see how is it that so many people can be misled, and who can turn a blind eye to so much evil going on, and they're that manipulated that their only concerns is their own wealth. And I think these mobile phones and these technological devices seem to have the similar effect as to what magic had when people did it on each other back in the day. And magic is well known definitely in the East. It's still a practice thing today. And these occult groups that run these programs are obsessed with magic. And the Masons are well known to be obsessed with Solomon. And they want to get their hands on the quote unquote the magic of Solomon. Quran makes it clear Solomon never practiced any magic. He didn't do anything evil. And what the amazing things that happened at his hands was through the blessings of God and him subduing the Jinn to his command. So the Jinn would do whatever he told them. So he used to they dive, as is described in the Quran. So the Jinn, they travel through space, but they also dive into the oceans. So Solomon used to send them in the oceans to retrieve artifacts and treasures and pearls and things like that for him. So that's what he would have them do, and he would share these wealth with the people and strengthen his army with it and so on and so forth. So yeah, that was part and parcel of it. Another thing that Solomon was able to do is speak to birds, and there was and to animals, and there was an obsession with the Masons to get this. They believed it was a magic, and they wanted to learn that magic from Solomon, as they believed it, so that they could control the animals like Solomon did. So these Masons are very obsessed with non-human intelligence because they know and they believe that it's real. So it's kind of funny how they're diving for space back in the day, right? They really wanted to get up there and speak to the brethren who had been speaking into their ears, like Jack Parsons stated that he was being, spoken to by an extraterrestrial. And it all kind of ties into this obsession with getting the power that Solomon had. And I think that that's where these families who learned this magic come into it. I think that's what he's talking about. These are families who are old money. We're not talking about money who came in during a technological time. Money's so old and so vast that we don't even talk about them. And, every now and then, we may mention a name of a Rothschild's banking or one of these other families like that. But these guys are way more wealthier and powerful than you can imagine. There's a complete separation from them and the rest of humanity. And I think that's what he's maybe indicating there, as well as what Matthew Brown was mentioning and indicating that there's two realities going on here, and the ones who live in that reality alongside the jinn, as mentioned by that verse in the Quran that Sam mentioned about those people on the Day of Judgment who will say that some of us benefited others, those human beings who are the allies of the jinn. I think that's what we're talking about here. We're talking about old families who've been doing magic for a very long time, benefiting from their knowledge about the jinn and separating the rest of us from it. And I think that's where the real betrayal is going on. It's a betrayal of people at the top who are friendly with them, who are close to them, and then the rest of the IC and everyone else trying to get close to them too, doing whatever it takes to try to get close to them, and most of the time failing, being told to do really disgusting and depraved things in order to try and get close, and quite often being abandoned after doing them. So yeah, I don't know if I'm waffling on now, guys, but
No, it's brilliant. I think you mentioned some important things, bro. Is that you take what Dylan said and then you look at what you mentioned about Jack Parsons and so on. I think if you connect those two stories and other points, the picture becomes very clear. I mean, the whole UFO, UAP, it's just a new guise. That's all it is for the same thing. I mean, and Parsons and Crowley or Alistair Crowley, they were the bridge, if you like, between ancient or the old terminology and the new. That between, and it was literally after Parsons was engaging in his rituals in the desert that you had the first flap, and then the whole UFO thing just broke. But let's go to Ophelia, and then we'll go to Jimbo. I think Ophelia had a hand up first.
Thank you. Thanks for the speaker invite. I really appreciate it. I wasn't expecting to speak, but I guess I'm here. But what resonated with me with all of this is the idea of first the jinn having very complex social systems and belief systems, and how they can be, subject to the same beliefs as us, right? So I think that's really interesting. But then going into the Masonic kind of connection, there was a 33rd degree Freemason in a space the other day, and I had to leave it because his energy was so disgusting. He was saying that he was claiming that his lodge, which was somewhere, I think in California, that they had control of all the major demons now, and that they're doing it all for Gaia. And anybody who's against Gaia, well, you're against the Freemasons. And Gaia is just the lady. It's just the mother maternal figure, right? And so it seems this Jezebel's spirit has made her way very, if this is true, successfully into the Freemasons, and they don't see them as jinn, they call them demons. And I'm like, well, why would you want to have control of demons? I asked him, why wouldn't you want control of angels and to do good things? Why would you want control of demons? And he went into this whole bullshit thing about how he's a part of the void and he's an orphan of the void. I'm like, okay, whatever that means. I'm a child of God, so have fun with that. But yeah, I just thought that was interesting how he said anybody who's against Gaia is against us, and we have control of all the demons now. Very interesting.
You know what's funny? You said it was like a feminine. So Gaia, I thought was Earth, but you're saying it's like a feminine deity.
Yeah, they see it as like Mother Earth, Gaia, the great feminine, divine feminine. The giver, right, of life. Right. Ashura, maybe, potentially.
Yeah.
Inanna, Tanit, all the same thing, right? Jezebel, all the same. Lilith, all the same.
So in the Quran, actually God exposes these false feminine deities because for whatever reason, the shayateen or the jinn, they like to take this form of a feminine, and there has been some speculation as to why they do the feminine. Some have said it's because man's weakness is women, and it's a valid point. If you see, you can tell sometimes when a man sees a woman, he'll do anything and, ruin things just to please her, to get her favor, So that is, one theory that people have thrown out there. But what it says in the Quran is, essentially they come in a feminine form, but in reality it's not a female deity at all, but in reality it's a rebellious devil that's hiding behind this form. And it's funny that a 33rd degree Mason would come in and talk about this openly, and I know that the Bledsoes have talked a lot about Hathor. I don't know if I'm saying it right. Someone could correct me. But yeah, Hathor being some sort of feminine deity that the people of Pharaoh used to worship or whatever. But this is common, and God clearly designates that if anything comes in a feminine deity form, it's not what you think it is, and it's actually a rebellious devil hiding behind that form to misguide you. And they come in that form to manipulate people. And
What? You mean she's really not some beautiful blonde lady with big old boobs that's talking to Chris Bledsoe?
Dude, it's crazy, isn't it? Like, if you chuck a chest on something, a lot of men just fall over their feet. You know what I mean?
In Bledsoe's case, what's also interesting in his interview that he did with Area 52, I think, you have to remember that the female deity only appeared once he was just about to give up. Right at the end of his tether, he was going to give up on the whole thing, these entities or beings, because of all the pressure from family and stuff. And then the female deity emerges to him. It shifted according to his state, almost as a last resort to keep him going on this path. Anyway, let's go to Jim.
By the way, I can't see anyone. I didn't see Ophelia's hand. I can't see anything, by the way. So
yeah, I can see it, bro. Jim Bot's got his hand up now.
Well, yeah. Hi, guys. How you doing, bloke?
It's been a while, geezer. How are you,
yeah,
sir?
I'm good, fella. Yeah.
How's things where you are, mate?
Yeah, good, mate. Yeah, just really interesting listening to people's opinions and fucking hell, Jesus. It's very complicated, isn't it? I think the Dylan Borland interview that just happened with Jeremy Corbell was fascinating. Jesus Christ, where do we start? Where do we unpack this? So, he was insinuating that basically that this thing that's been around us for a long time is being recorded by humans as religion. What do you think of that, bloke?
Yeah, that's pretty much what we spoke about for the majority of the space here. The idea that there's two ways of looking at it. Either we trust what's coming out of the very secretive, very clandestine programs, and we say that these entities influence religion, or we trust religion and we go with that there is a God, that the prophets were real, and that these things are there to manipulate us away from the path. So,
interesting question.
Go on.
No, it's an interesting question because basically we have to accept what was before us, or that those before us were actually telling us what's going on. And I'm kind of looking at it going, right, Jesus Christ, what the fuck's happening here? And if you've had any experiences yourself, and I wonder if there's people in this group that have had experiences, and I'm not talking about like the fucking happy clappy bullshit stuff. I'm talking about real experiences. Like what is really going on? And we know now, like listening to the Dylan Borland stuff that's gone on, we are being fucked with as the members of the public by the intelligence communities of the United States, the Five Eyes, all the rest of it. I fucking know that for a fact, and I know that we're being played off against one another. Israel, like Judaism, Muslims, Christianity, we're all being played off, and I kind of think like what's really behind this, because actually when I go to different countries, bloke, I get on with people and they're no different from me, and I just kind of understand, like I'm looking at it going, really, what's going on here? And you look at the TV, you go on the television, you look at the shit that goes on TV. It's like, oh, these people are this, these people are that, and I'm like, where's this coming from? I've been to Muslim countries. I've been to different countries all around the world. And do you know what? Everywhere I've been welcomed. I've been helped. I've been, so what is going on? That is a real question here.
I've got some theories on that, and it goes way deeper than just. I don't think. Yeah, even Christianity, I'd say, has been marred with the same thing. It's been a very long time that Christianity and religion in general has been sort of downtrodden and placed in this kind of like a coping mechanism for mankind, rather than it being based in any reality. I think the UAP topic, in and of itself, you can take it as two ways. Some people want to take it as a new form of thinking that is separate from and is the reason, the direct reason that religions exist was because of their misunderstanding. You know, back then they were ignorant, they didn't know, so they were easily manipulated, and therefore what they experienced was something similar to UAP. They just misunderstood it, rather than it being the other way round, that actually they were the enlightened people and understood better what was going on with regard to spirituality, the difference between an angel and a demon, for example. So they could tell, like, you know, what was good and what was not about it. So, like we said, you're going to have to look at it in two ways. Now, why would there be a media push to be anti-religion, whether that be Islam or Christianity, I'd say, and why there is an a push for, instead of there being Adam being created by an all-powerful creator, but instead was developed in a laboratory by some grey aliens on a advanced technological ship who grabbed a monkey and manipulated this genetic profile to create a human being. So that, I think that's where we're kind of looking at here, and why there would be such a push to be anti-religion. They have openly said, people have said that religions were created as a control mechanism for mankind by non-human intelligence. If that's the case, why would they create religions that paint them as bad people? The non-human intelligence, as we've discussed already tonight, painted by Islam, is if they're acting in these ways, which we said, manipulating, whispering to people, getting you to change their creation, creating technologies, inspiring new invention, giving you new ideas, encouraging you to be sexually deviant, and so on and so forth. These are the acts of the devil, acts of shaitan. You should stay away from them. Why would they send a book that paints them in such a light when in reality they're actually a good thing? It makes no sense. So I think that this is a huge dilemma that they have to, and I did see part of the interview that Jesse Michaels did with that geezer. I forgot his name, but he essentially, I looked through and I heard it when he mentioned about religion, and it was just in passing.
He was a philosopher.
It was a passing statement he made. I don't know if you noticed, he just made a passing statement about religion, and it was put in like the thumbnail, but he didn't really deal with any of the questions that arise from trying to brush off religion as some sort of byproduct of the non-human intelligence. He has to explain angels. He has to explain why there's angels, what demons are, and why does God make a distinction between the two, and why the angels came to the prophets, and why the prophets came with law, and what these laws did for mankind, and how they shaped mankind and protected us, and who were represented by the devil, and what they did, and how they tried to manipulate things. So it's very clear from a religious perspective who's who, but the way they brush it off as all one thing, when we look at the UAP, when we look at what's available to the UAP data and what's been heard from the whistleblowers and what we know since 1940s, 1950s, it definitely, these things fall more into the demonic category for sure, and therefore you can't just brush them off, because we already account for the demonism, the demonic behavior that these things exhibit, and therefore you have to tackle that from the religious perspective, because if Christianity or let's say monotheistic religions are a byproduct of the non-human intelligence, then why would they expose themselves in such a way? In particular, Islam is very, very specific about these things, and it goes into great details about the type of manipulation they do to mankind. So I think it creates more of a problem for them rather than it being a great question. Rather, it's just more of a dilemma for the people on the other side, and I don't think they should get away with just brushing it under the carpet.
Fascinating. Thank you, bloke. Yeah, good to talk to you again, mate.
Always a pleasure.
Yeah, mate. It's the one thing that fascinates me is at the moment we're going through a real dilemma with religions and divisive manipulation of media, if you like, in terms of like Judaism and Muslim religion, Christianity, and it bugs me because I'm like, look, do you know what? And I think we talked about this before, but like it was about the we used to be in this country in the UK. We used to have shamanism. They have that in the Amazon, this, that, and the other. And I'm confused because I'm like, look, we're all the same, and the point I'm trying to make is, look, we're all the same, and I don't really understand this like big divide we keep having and where these wars come from. I kind of do, because I kind of think there's oh fucking hell, I'm going to get into conspiracies here now, but I think this is where the control mechanisms come from perhaps the Jinn, if you like. And there's the bad elements of this that are actually trying to do shit with humankind and cause divide. It's the old book of the Book of War, the Japanese Book of War, which is like divide and conquer, and I don't really get it, and I'm concerned, like really as a human being, looking at it, travelled lots, and looking at it going, what the fuck? I don't know.
I want to speculate here quickly, Jim, if you don't mind. Now, I just want to take... I don't know who's in the room anymore because I've completely glitched out and I don't even know if everyone hears me, but I want to say George Bush, and I bring this up, but it's important. George Bush Jr., he said before the invasion of Iraq, he said God himself told him to invade Iraq because they had weapons of mass destruction. 1 million plus people, innocent people, died from that invasion, both directly and indirectly, but accumulatively over 1 million people passed away for that invasion. And people who don't live in that country and haven't experienced what that war was like and the embargoes that were placed on the Iraqi people.
Horrendous.
It was horrendous, absolutely horrendous. I want to just briefly speculate for a moment. Imagine you're part of a remote viewing program and you're remote viewing, and in your remote viewing program, you see that there's weapons of mass destruction tucked away in a bunker in Iraq. And this spirit guide that you have tells you that these guys, these Muslims, they're going to detonate it. And they're going to target Israel or whatever country, name a Western country. They're going to target Britain or Europe or whatever with this weapon of mass destruction. And it's imperative that you guys act. So clairvoyance and remote viewing, these people are getting this information from their so-called Jinn counterparts, right, who are meant to be helping them. So they pass that along the chain. And, the commander of that unit, he says, look, this guy, he's got a very, very accurate reading percentage. And he's not just him, we've cross-referenced it with other remote viewers, and they've said the same thing. And there is, weapons of mass destruction. And, this is pertaining to, they believe it's God's guiding them to create this bomb, and they're going to blow everyone to smithereens with it. So this information gets passed up the chain, and, the president hears that it's from the special program, the remote viewing program, and the Jinn gods, or the gods as they view them, Hathor, has given the go-ahead that there's weapons of mass destruction. So he goes out on the plinth and he tells everyone that God has told him to invade Iraq. Confidently. Why? Because he believes that this is from phenomenal information from a phenomenal program that deals with the phenomena. In reality, there was no weapons of mass destruction. It was a completely misled event, right? I'm just speculating. I'm not saying that that's what happened, but odd that he made such a claim and then invades Iraq.
Yeah,
in the Quran.
Very odd. Yeah. So
in the Quran, I just want to mention this last thing. In the Quran, the devil targets the believers. When the Christians were the leaders of the religions, they were targeted. When the children of Israel were the leaders of the religion, they were targeted by the devils. And now it's also we're targeted too, yeah? So if you're a believer, you will be targeted by them, and he wants there to be war between the believers. This is what he always does, because people of good strength and belief in God tend to be a much more a proactive and decent society. The people in the past, 100 years ago, who were God-fearing, were much more productive and proactive, and there wasn't loads of children out of wedlock. I'm not saying that having a child out of wedlock makes you a bad person. What I'm saying is that the byproduct of such a behavior is that there's no one looking after the children. They're not getting the money they do. Men have children and run off, and they don't pay their way, and they don't look after that child. And that's just one thing I'm mentioning, but you could speak of so many different things that have changed over the last 100 years that have made society worse because we've moved away from religion religious rulers.
But this is idealism, like being ideological. So I get what you're saying. Interesting you brought up Bush. Vannevar Bush was a scientist who was involved with what I believe to be Majestic 12. We don't know what that is yet. There's lots of speculation around that. I get what you're saying. I 100% get what you're saying. It's interesting, bloke. Yeah, there's a lot of things that don't add up, and that whole thing around the Middle East is not right. You look at the 1979, like when the Shia, the Shura, is it Shia or the Shura, took over in 1979, was it? I think it was 1979. Then it went...
I know what you're talking. Shia, I think.
Yeah. So if anyone can correct me here, it just seems to be like a power struggle all the time, and I don't get it. And this is a point I'm saying. Like when I've been to countries, in Muslim countries, or I've been to Catholic countries, or whatever, we're all the same, and it just seems to be this divide all the time. And I don't know if it's like you say, it's the Jinn that are actually the Jinn, as you call them, the implementing this or whatever. But there's definitely an outside force here that are having a bit of a play on all this. And so like that Dylan Borland interview with Jeremy Corbell was fascinating because he alluded to that massively. And I think people need to pay attention to that. I think it's really important. He's talking about the legacy program. It's not about fucking flying saucers. It's about actually there's something going on here, and then there's people aware of this, and we need to pay attention. And I think you're right, bloke. It comes down to it's religious texts, if you like, but if that's not the important bit. The important bit is us as people, and we need to be aware of what's going on around us. And years ago, I think our ancestors were very aware that there was an outside force. It's not aliens. It's yeah, I don't know. There's things going on, man. But yeah, that's my little 2 pence there. But yeah,
I think that's why people like Dylan and others who step forward, the little nuggets we get from them, for people who follow this topic, as long as you have Jim and myself and Red and Imran, and all these other, I know there's probably people in this room who've been following this much longer than even I have. And I've been since I was a little boy. So, I think there's more to be still learnt from it. But by sweeping away the history of it or religions and things like that, I think it does a great disservice. Yeah, you can't, mate. You got to take it all in and then present your theory, I think, rather than just sweeping it away and saying, "Nah, we got something new here, guys. You lot are, old hat, and this is the new way." So,
100%.
I appreciate your input, Jim.
Yeah.
You're an absolute legend, man. Appreciate it. Nice to hear from you for so long.
Yeah, man. Yeah. I'm going to drop you a message, bro. Yeah, I'm out of it.
That's all right, Mark. No, I don't mean it like that. But yeah, thank you. You're a gent. And message me, and we'll have a chat one day. Me and you.
100%, bro.
In the space together. Be safe, yeah. Look after yourself, Jim. Who's up next? Who's next?
Park's got his hand up. Go on,
I was just telling, just reminding people of time that it's been an hour and a half since we've been on. So just out of respect for other people's time, if you guys want, we can wrap it up.
Yeah, I think if
I'm good.
Any other questions people have before we sort of wrap it up? And
follow these guys, man. They do it every Friday, right? It's a nice perspective, the Islam, Muslim perspective on all these topics. But it's a beautiful thing about ufology, right? We all get to meet like in the middle on a lot of different topics, right? Islam, nuclear physics, propulsion, all these kinds of things meet in the middle here in ufology.
You know what, Red? You mentioned at the beginning you wanted to get into some of the sort of programs here and information like that, and I touched on it, but didn't get to go in deep. But perhaps next week we'll talk a bit more about BAE. We'll talk a little bit more about kinetic and a few of the other things that I found out that's been going on. And I'm going to give you a little.
I can add some info to that.
Come next week. Yeah, we're going to do it on Friday next week. I'm going to give you a little tidbit, or should I say something that I think is indicated in what I've found. I think, and it's just speculation, so people can laugh at me and boo me or whatever. Yeah, I think that there is a agreement or some sort of agreement in the Five Eyes that America focuses on the techno aspect of it, and I think that Britain is more leaning towards the biological side of it, and that's why you guys don't get many leaks on the bio side, because the tight-lipped Brits are the ones who are running that side of the program. It's pure speculation at this point, but we'll talk a bit more about it next week. So, a little tidbit for next week. We're going to go into the UK side of the program and what I've found in that. And I'd like anyone who knows anything in this room or has heard anything, even I know there's somebody who's listening right now. There's some indication that his father knew about aspects of the program, or knew the program existed back in the 90s or 80s. So it'd be nice to hear from them. But anyone else who has some knowledge about what's going on in UK, it'd be really good to hear from you guys. So.
Yeah, and just before we wrap it up, I do want to give a big shout out to everyone here, especially Red for making time out this Fridays. I know it's weekend tomorrow. People are preparing to go to bed. Enjoy the weekend. But I appreciate it, guys.
Before you close up, go on.
I think in America, it's like you guys are what's the time there now? You're
it's 4:42 right now, p.m.
It's 3 for me right now, yeah.
Yeah, so you guys are good, man. We're here, it's like 10:42, so we're getting to the end of the day, man. So, but anyway, thank you for coming on. Red, really appreciate you coming on and encouraging everyone to jump on as well. Thank you, man, because it helps to broaden the discussion. And I think that's something that needs to be done, and it brings in a different perspective. And like I said, I love
what you guys are doing, bro.
No, thanks, man. Yeah, and I appreciate you as well, Red. Yeah, we're really open to to all different perspectives on this topic, and having those discussions. It's very easy for people to just brush off, oh, this is just religious talk or theological talk, and it's not relevant to the topic. But as we can see and appreciate through these discussions, that it really enriches the whole domain, and I think we need more of these. So yeah, I really appreciate you guys coming on, and thanks again, Redman, for jumping in.
As is traditional in our spaces, I tend to mention everyone who I can see on the screen, so I will do that as per my tradition. So thank you, Phenomena, Kamagra, Kurt, Flowerfield, Ruth Baldwin. We've got Vidrut. We've got 42, I believe, in Arabic, with the little Homer Simpson sleeping. We got Milners with the little nighttime shot. We got Junior with the little frog dude. We got August Nunez. We got David. We got Gnosis. We got Sal with the two little dots. We got the Anon K with someone putting their middle finger up at me. We got Ben Mac. We got Zeta. We got Notrana with two little eyeballs and a cool little orange picture. We got Asylum with a cool picture there. We got Carrie Computer, Cambria. We got Michael's SPR. You can see he's on a boat. Looks cool, bro. We got Brent with the chakra picture. We got Stacia, who's got a lovely little shot there. We got Christina. We got Rain Down Fire. We got Mickey Pitts. We got Blaze. We got Stoned with a little what looks like an eyeball on the forehead, the classic one. We've got Hermetic with the little triangle dude. We've got Phoenix with what looks like a blue flare Phoenix. We've got John Lucas, UFO Sarah, Dory. We've got Fringe with the cool hair. We've got Little Moses. We've got Joe. We've got Fark. Maximum, as always, bruv. Nice to see you in here, Max. Ophelia, another classic. And you know what? Fringe and Ophelia, you come often as well. Appreciate you always joining in. Historical, as well as Kiki. You're a regular as well. Thanks for joining. Ganga, Czech, Alien, Khalid, Jimbo Red, Imran, and you, IREP. Appreciate you all. Thanks for coming tonight, guys. And any questions, if you don't agree, shoot us a message, inbox on the IREP, because we all have access to the IREP channel. And yeah, if you want to share something with us, or if you've got questions about the whistleblower we brought up, or anything like that, if we're able to answer them, just shoot them in the IREP and we'll have a look at it over the week. You take care of yourselves. We'll be back again next week, and we will be diving into the UK side of the UFO portfolio. And thank you very much for attending tonight. Take care. And we'll go late next week, so to appreciate our American viewers, I'll go into like the sort of midnight 1 o'clock time with regard to that, so we can go into your evening time, guys. Yeah, take care. Thank you all, and peace be upon those who follow right guidance. Thanks very much. Bye bye.